Have you ever felt like your own brain has just thrown a veil of negativity over your entire existence?
Oh, absolutely.
Like you're trapped in this constant cycle of overthinking, stress, and just spiraling, where every decision, every interaction feels so weighted down by dread.
Yeah.
For anyone dealing with high anxiety, life can feel genuinely claustrophobic. It's so hard to be spontaneous, and often the people around you just dismiss it as a bad attitude or, and this is the worst, they tell you to just cheer up.
It's just never that simple. And that dismissal it's so unhelpful. I think the very first thing we have to get straight in this deep dive is that anxiety isn't a personal failure.
Right.
It's a legitimate, profound psychological phenomenon. You aren't wrong or weak for feeling this way, but it's crucial to realize that while anxiety is not your fault, the path to a low anxiety life, it requires taking responsibility for managing it.
That distinction between fault and responsibility, that's so important.
It's the key. It's what unlocks empowerment and is, the first step toward getting out of its clutches.
And that's our mission today. We're diving deep into the roots of this overwhelming state, looking at why our brains default to worry, and critically, assembling an actionable toolkit you can use today to interrupt the loop. And we begin with a paradox that really everything hinges on. Anxiety so often stems from this desperate, frantic attempt to gain control. But that very attempt is what traps us.
Exactly. The central truth we have to face is that we have to learn to embrace and accept uncertainty to find ease. If we don't address that core paradox, all the techniques in the world are just temporary fixes.
Band-aids.
Total band-aids.
Yeah.
We're fighting a losing battle, trying to force control, especially over things that are fundamentally, unpredictable or unanswerable. So let's first unpack why your brain is even playing this obsessive game.
Okay, let's do it. Let's unpack this. It all starts with the basic wiring of our brains, something researchers call the negativity bias. I mean, if our ancestors were getting ready for a dinner party, they didn't need to worry about what wine to serve. They need to worry about the saber-toothed tiger waiting outside the cave. So how did this need for vigilance get so hardwired into us?
It's all about survival advantage. The ancestors who were ultra-tuned into negative, threatening signals, the rustle in the grass, the slight shift in temperature, they were the ones who best evaded danger.
And lived to pass on their genes.
And lived to reproduce. Their brain prioritized warning signs. Dr. John Cacioppo did some fascinating work on this, running experiments where he tracked the electrical activity in the cerebral cortex when people viewed different images. Neutral, positive, and negative.
And what did those electric surges reveal? How do our minds prioritize information?
Well, Cacioppo found the cerebral cortex always responded with stronger and faster electrical surges to the negative images than to the positive ones.
So it's like a bigger jolt.
A much bigger jolt, exactly. And that signals a greater depth of processing. So your brain right now is naturally spending more energy focusing on the potential bad than the actual good.
Wow. Okay, so that's actually hardwired in. If our brain is automatically prioritizing threats, what's the real-world consequence of that?
This is where it gets really compelling. Because of this ingrained negativity bias, researchers suggest that to even perceive your life, or say, a close relationship, as truly satisfying and positive, you need at least a 5-to-1 ratio.
5 to 1.
5 positive experiences or interactions for every 1 negative one,
Right.
or even higher. That tells you just how much cognitive weight a single bad experience carries.
Right. That ratio provides so much clarity about why it feels like the bad always outweighs the good. So this negativity bias leads us straight into the primary trigger for the worry cycle, which you identified earlier as the core problem.
A lack of certainty.
A lack of certainty.
Absolutely. When uncertainty hits, your brain just goes into analysis mode. It's like, I don't know what's happening, and that feels unsafe, so I need to gather infinite information to find a rational solution and feel safe again.
But that becomes an analysis trap.
It is the analysis trap. We try to answer fundamentally unanswerable questions.
Can you give us an example of a question that feels solvable but is actually unanswerable?
Sure. Think about constantly questioning a partner's loyalty despite, years of history and reassurance. You're trying to get 100% certainty that they will never leave you.
Which is impossible.
It's impossible.
Yeah.
Or worrying about a huge global event you have no personal influence over. The rumination, the information gathering, it doesn't soothe the discomfort. It actually triggers more discomfort because the brain keeps finding new possibilities of doom.
Because no amount of thinking in circles will ever give you more control than you actually have.
Right.
It just gives you the illusion of being in control because you are...
Because you're doing something.
Exactly. Even if that something is just thinking.
The only sustainable way out of this spiral is to confront uncertainty. You have to teach your brain that it's okay, that it's not dangerous, and that you are equipped to handle future challenges.
Yeah.
You have to practice acceptance,
Not force control.
not force control.
So we understand the brain's bias now and why we crave that control, but, I mean, knowing is only half the battle. How do we actually intervene in the moment when that spiral starts? How do we translate that acceptance into our moment-to-moment behavior?
We need to start with the foundational skill in emotional regulation, which is differentiating between reacting and responding.
Okay.
This is where you insert the pause button. To react is impulsive. It's short-term thinking, focused only on immediate relief like yanking your hand away from an emotional hot stove.
No rational thought.
None at all. And to respond, on the other hand, is taking the time to pause, consider alternatives, and make a decision based on desired long-term outcomes, not those intense immediate feelings.
That pause is the space where you reclaim control.
That's it. It's where you control your attention.
The difference is so subtle, but it sounds incredibly high leverage. So let's use that classic example. Fighting with your partner about holiday plans. A reaction is to immediately throw blame.
All right. Yep. Assuming they're selfish, picking a fight
Yep.
because you want that immediate relief of being right.
But a response would be to pause and realize, okay, my anger is spiking. Before I launch into this, I need to ask why they suggested this change.
Maybe they have a sick family member, or maybe they're struggling financially. That pause allows the rational brain to come back online. It's simple in concept, even if it feels incredibly hard in the moment.
Right. So once you understand that foundational pause, you can use these more structural tools to break the automatic loops. One powerful one from behavioral therapy is the ABC loop.
Antecedent, behavior, consequence.
Right. It's all about building self-awareness by mapping out what happened before the action and the reinforcing outcome after.
We're essentially creating a mental blueprint. The antecedent, or A, is the trigger. Maybe it's a difficult client email or a dinner discussion about your career goals.
And the behavior, B, is what you want to change. The immediate snapping, the binge eating, the uncontrollable anger. And then the consequence, C. This feels like the trickiest part, because the consequence is usually what reinforces the bad behavior.
It almost always is.
I'm thinking of the last time I snapped at someone. I was so focused on the immediate relief, the C, of driving them away, that I totally missed that the actual trigger, A, wasn't their comment. It was that I was already tired and hungry.
That's it, exactly. If the immediate outcome is that the other person leaves the room or the stress just vanishes for a second, you feel a temporary win.
And that reinforces it.
It's a positive reinforcement to continue that behavior, even if it's, maladaptive and harms your relationships. The analysis helps you realize the behavior's true purpose. It's usually a coping mechanism.
A variation of this is something called emotional dashboarding, which seems like a deeper, more comprehensive ABC loop that really digs into the body's signals.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Dashboarding requires logging more internal layers. You log the neutral situation, just the literal factual events, your personal thoughts, your inner monologue and beliefs like, I shouldn't have to deal with this.
Right.
Then the resulting emotions, using single words like sadness or fear. Then the specific bodily sensations, shoulder tension, stomach upset. Your body often tells the truth before your brain does. And finally, your impulses or actions.
Your first instinct to relieve the discomfort.
Yes. This helps you gain that external distance from the chaos.
Okay, so moving to an immediate regulation technique for when thoughts start to swarm, let's talk about worry postponement. Anxious thoughts are so intrusive, they demand immediate attention.
This technique really flips the script by letting you control when you worry. You interrupt the thought spiral, and you tell yourself, okay, I'm allowed to worry about that, but my brain can hold on to this worry until my designated worry time tomorrow morning at 10 a.m.
It's an incredible power move because you limit the worry's time. It doesn't get to consume your whole evening.
And you have to apply the litmus test right then. Is this worry, 1, a genuine problem, and 2, something I can do something about right now? If the answer to either is no, you postpone it. The mind quickly learns that the worry appointment often isn't even necessary.
Now, for worries that are specific and solvable, we can structure our thinking using the 5 whys technique. This moves us away from aimless rumination and toward action.
Yes, this method is so simple but powerful. You define the problem and then you just repeatedly ask, why is that happening? 5 times, or until you get to the root cause. Let's take the problem of not being able to sell your house.
Okay, so the surface problem is, why won't people buy my house?
You ask, why is that happening? The price is too high. Why is the price too high? Because I paid too much for it 2 years ago, and I'm terrified of losing equity. Why are you terrified of losing equity? Because I rushed the purchase, and I'm deeply anxious about having made a huge financial mistake.
Ah, so the surface complaint, the market, the buyers, it was actually psychological resistance rooted in past anxiety and regret about the decision itself.
Once you find that route, you can take action, like consciously accepting the past mistake and lowering the price. That resolves the actual anxiety, not just the symptom. It turns overthinking into problem solving.
So now we can transition to the core mindset shifts, the process of, as you call it, debugging the machine.
Yes, and this starts with cultivating distress tolerance. Anxiety often traps us because we believe that negative emotions are unbearable and must be immediately avoided. Distress tolerance is about accepting that discomfort is a natural and, more importantly, bearable part of life.
So the core of this is identifying your escape mechanism and then consciously choosing not to use it.
Precisely. First, identify your triggers and warning signs. That could be a chaotic work deadline or internal feelings like physical warmth, a rush of adrenaline, or that specific thought, I can't cope.
Okay.
Once you spot those warning signs, you commit to step 3. Forgo the escape mechanism and do the opposite.
Give us a tangible example of a common escape mechanism.
Oh, a very common one is doom scrolling or emotional eating or immediately lashing out at a loved one. The anxious spike happens and the brain demands immediate relief. So if your escape is to snap at your family, you choose to stay present, breathe, and silently affirm, I can bear this feeling. It's uncomfortable, but it's not dangerous.
You're essentially doing self-exposure therapy.
You are. You're training yourself to trust your ability to withstand the emotional spike, which eventually minimizes the anxiety's power over you.
This sounds so difficult, but also incredibly freeing. And we can see echoes of this resilience in ancient wisdom, too, particularly in Buddhist non-attachment and Stoic neutrality.
They align perfectly with modern cognitive behavioral therapy. Buddhist philosophy says that pain is inevitable. It's just a biological signal, but suffering is a choice caused by our attachment.
We cling to the experiences.
We cling to the experiences that people and things bring us, and in doing so, we forfeit our power to make ourselves happy. If we stop trying to control the world's outcome, we set ourselves free from suffering.
Which leads directly to the Stoic concept of neutrality. The Stoics argue that everything that happens is, well, neutral.
Exactly. Our reaction, and specifically our judgment of the event, are what cause unhappiness. It's the philosophical blueprint for the emotional dashboard we discussed earlier.
So it's forcing us to separate the objective situation from our subjective thoughts.
Yes. As Marcus Aurelius put it, if you are pained by any external thing, it is not this thing that disturbs you, but your own judgment about it.
So if a coworker leaves a passive-aggressive email, the email itself is just neutral data. You choose whether to spend your day internalizing it as a personal attack or just calmly responding to the facts within it.
And your emotional stability hinges entirely on that internal choice, which leads to the Stoic practice of turning the obstacle upside down.
Right.
You train yourself to see all obstacles, even painful ones, as opportunities for positive growth. A mean patient is an opportunity to practice patience. A financial setback is an opportunity to practice fortitude. You are actively reinterpreting neutral events to empower yourself.
And to actively combat that ingrained negativity bias we talked about, we have to be proactive. So we turn now to the direct antidote: gratitude and savoring.
Gratitude, when it's practiced consistently, activates the neural pathways for dopamine and serotonin, our feel-good neurotransmitters. And we know that neurons that fire together wire together. The more we practice gratitude, the stronger and more automatic those peaceful, positive pathways become.
It physically changes your brain's biology over time.
It does.
The research on this is so compelling that Emmons and McCullough's study demonstrated this clearly. The journalers who consistently listed things they were grateful for showed greater increases in determination, attention, and energy compared to those who just listed daily annoyances.
The hassles, yeah. It truly shifts the focus from perceived deficits to available resources. And savoring is essentially gratitude in real time. It means intentionally slowing down and appreciating a pleasant experience as you engage in it. Taking time to relish a warm meal, feeling the sun on your skin, really listening to a conversation, you're deliberately pulling your focus out of your anxious mind and anchoring it to a single, pleasurable reality.
Okay, now let's look at the really actionable tools you can deploy when stress feels immediate and overwhelming. We call this the 4 A's of stress management. Avoid, alter, accept, and adapt.
This is your practical lifeboat. First, avoid.
Mhm.
Remove unnecessary stressors. That means delegating tasks, avoiding crowded times, or learning to say no.
And if you can avoid it,
Then you need to alter the situation. Ask others to change their behavior. Communicate your needs directly using non-confrontational I statements, or just restructure the activity to make it less stressful.
the third A is accept what cannot change. This is the Stoic influence again. Forgive. Reframe past mistakes as learning opportunities. Acceptance isn't about agreeing with an injustice. It's about letting go of the exhausting fight against reality.
And finally, adapt. Change yourself to better cope. This might mean lowering perfectionistic expectations or adopting a deliberately optimistic or even humorous perspective. You're building inner strength.
So if panic hits and you feel that surge of mental chatter, the 5-4-3-2-1 grounding technique is your immediate go-to.
The fastest way to pull your awareness out of rumination and anchor it to your body. The method is simple. Look for 5 things you see, 4 things you can feel or touch, 3 things you hear, 2 things you smell, and 1 thing you taste.
Your brain just can't ruminate and focus on sensory input at the same time.
Exactly. You are unhooking the thought spiral by hijacking your attention.
Another technique from narrative therapy is externalization. You gain distance by separating yourself from the problem.
Making it an entity outside of who you are. So you change your language from "I am an anxious person" to something like "I'm noticing some anxiety showing up today."
Gaining that distance is so powerful.
It is. You could even give the anxious voice a name, like boring old Fred. So when that droning commentary starts, you can recognize it, mentally note, "Oh, Fred is talking again," and dismiss it without adopting the message as truth.
This is critical for managing rumination, which, as we said, literally means chewing the cud.
Just regurgitating the same old fear over and over.
So you have to run the rumination check. Ask yourself, is what I'm doing problem solving or merely regurgitation?
And if it's regurgitation, you have to force yourself out of the thought loop. Get up and do 30 jumping jacks while reciting the alphabet backward. Or focus intently on a complicated song. The goal is to aggressively rechannel that anxious energy.
What a phenomenal and comprehensive toolkit we've assembled here, moving from, cognitive awareness all the way to immediate behavioral techniques.
We've covered that crucial shift from unconscious reactivity to conscious response. It's enabled by awareness tools like the ABC loop and emotional dashboarding, and reinforced by those mindset shifts rooted in stoicism, distress tolerance, and gratitude.
And every time you choose to respond instead of react.
You're strengthening your self-regulation muscle.
And I think that's the final note. Consistency. You will not conquer years of anxiety overnight. But researchers have found it takes around 66 days for a new habit to achieve automaticity.
To become easy.
Right. Don't strive for perfection, strive for consistency. Even small practices like using habit anchoring to tack a 2-minute gratitude list onto making your morning coffee builds unbreakable resilience over time.
The path to calming your thoughts is ultimately about control, but not over the volatile world outside. It's control over your attention. So given that your anxiety comes from trying to solve unanswerable questions, what is one piece of uncertainty you will deliberately accept today? Not to solve the problem, but just for the opportunity to practice your newfound resilience. What feels scary, but ultimately survivable.